Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Tony Holowitz, and I want to thank you for being here for this quick Act Clever podcast. Periodically, I run into a situation where I have a client that wants to enter fields or fields of different types into Act. And because I work with so many different companies and because I work with so many different individuals, I always find this an intriguing situation. Sometimes you have people that are hyper organized. They want to write down or record every single aspect of what they do, everything. So the way that translates in my mind to Act is they might want to have tons of fields in Act. Therefore, because there's tons of fields and tons of ways to enter information, there's a lot of recording of stuff going on. Having stated that, I am just the opposite. What I'm always looking for is how can I make sure that I'm getting the proper information into Act by doing the least amount of work. So what's that line? If you think of myself on one end of the scale and the person that wants to put a lot of data, like record everything, have tons of fields on the other end, what is that fine line in between? How do you determine what that is? So a lot of times when I start talking to people about Act and how they're entering information, I need to know or understand the flow. How does it work? What's the easiest way to track things? Act has many types of fields. I'm a big fan of the ID status field because fundamentally it's how you track who a person is. So for example, the ID status field in my mind, just to oversimplify this, if you think of it from a sales organization, you'll have prospects and you'll have customers. Now, you might call them customers or clients, doesn't matter. But when I refer to the ID status, I want to know who a contact is. Are they a client or are they a prospect? But what happens if a client or a prospect reaches out to you today and they want something? They want to work with you on something. Well, what I recommend to my clients is immediately change the ID status to new lead. And that's another ID status. So we have prospects, we have customers or clients, and new lead. So the reason I use this approach is this. My philosophy about organizing your Act database is that it has nothing to do with Act initially. What you need to do is you need to sit down, write down on a piece of paper sort of your flow. How do you work? How do you work and how do you want to keep track of things? Having stated that, I go by something that I call the 3 Monday plan, where every single Monday when you come into your office, you do certain things. The first Monday of the month, you do certain things. In the first Monday of the quarter, you do certain things. So with that approach, no contact in your database will ever slip through the cracks. But to go back for just a moment and focus on the ID status and the concept that it's a new lead, and understanding that at a minimum, you're going to reach out to that new lead or review that new lead every single Monday to make decisions about the new lead, well, you can put information in Act to record it. In a current situation I have a client that we are putting a lot of check boxes into Act. And those check boxes are, as they hit each step in a process, they check it off because they know they've done that thing. Once the next step is done, they check that off, and so on and so on. But when I look at this information, what I'm always curious about is this. Why are we recording that information? In other words, all these check boxes, why are they there? If I'm an individual and I'm looking at a contact, will I remember the previous step that I've done? Is that checkbox there for me in my memory that I've taken that step or action, or is it for other people? So now there's a new dynamic here. Are we entering information into Act to help us remember certain things, or are we entering information into Act so that information can be seen and in essence used to report on the information? So for example, a sales manager might want to know where are certain contacts in the process. And by entering a lot of data, a lot of check boxes, or a lot of ways of tracking things, or a sales opportunity, and you know from listening to me, I'm not a huge fan of sales opportunities because they're not visual enough for me. I like to see everything right on the screen without having to deviate from that. So having said that, what is the information in here for? Is it for me or is it for someone else? And if it's for me, what is that fine line of having too little or too much information? If it's for others, what is that line for having too little or too much information? And sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we got to get in and work with it, get the data in there, try to understand or comprehend how we work. And you know what? When you're a small business, you can change. So get it in, get the information in there, reevaluate, keep thinking about it, but keep it simple. At the end of the day, I believe and this has nothing to do with ACT, I believe simplicity is better for everyone involved. And also, when things are simple, it's easier to train people how to get into your setup or your process for working with customers or prospects. So there's a lot of considerations that go into the way you use ACT that frankly have nothing to do with the software. It's just saying, on a practical level, as human beings, how are we going to work the best? Now, having stated that, the person who's on one end of the scale that likes to have everything in there, and again, that's not me, I can't necessarily relate to that person. I'm on the other end where I want simplicity, and I know there are certain things that are intuitive, and also, if I forget something, I use a memo field in ACT where it's sort of a free-flowing whiteboard that I can remind myself I did this step. So I don't necessarily need a field to tell me I did this step, because I'm going to put a little note to myself to remind me when I come back to that contact. So one of the things I really love about the work I do and the way I work with my clients is every single situation is different, but in a way, all the situations are the same. We're just dealing with human nature, the flow of information, and what's the easiest way to help people work and be productive and successful with ACT. There's no set answer, but that's what makes it interesting to me. Thank you, everyone. My name is Tony Holowitz. I'd love your feedback on this. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. You have a wonderful day. Be well. Thank you, my friends.